We're like falling stars, miracles dancing on the ground. And we're right with you to feel it stride deep dive. We're right with you, yeah. And we're right with you to feel it stride deep dive. Suffering grows, yeah. You say that life is beautiful. Would you let me in? No, yeah. They say that life is beautiful. Would you let me in? No, yeah. Nah,
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, first of all, let me explain myself. I'm supposed to be doing this amazing show on the Tartarian tablet, and things went south, and there was technical difficulties. So I was like, so I'm super ragey and mad. So I was like, you know what? I have this Tartarian presentation that I made a few years ago that I like speaking. I like presenting it at conferences because there's a lot of people that will follow things that aren't aware of Tartaria and what it means. So I was like, why don't you channel that rage and frustration into Tartaria still? So this is my Tartaria presentation. It doesn't go into a ton of detail. It's a great introduction for like somebody new. So here is the presentation. Tartaria is a gateway to reawakening parts of you and your new world. And you will see what I'm talking about by the end of this. And it begins with Tartaria, but with the information that you end up absorbing, and it gets you to look at things deeper. And my whole goal is to get you to remember who and what you are, where you came from. And 1 gram of DNA holds a lot of information, a lot of data, like 455 exabytes. um So that's a lot of data, and that's a lot of information that we store that's inside of us. So there's certain things, when you hear certain things and see it, that it triggers within you. So there was a global unified civilization that stretched across the earth, and they were advanced. So Tartary, Tartaria, Grand Tartary. The overview is it's the largest empire on maps. They seem to have advanced knowledge. I mean, you look at the architecture and it's kind of, you know, like overwhelming of like, wait a second, we can't build that. There's free energy. Um, they seem to use atmospheric energy. There's ancient language. A lot of people have never been most people, they have not been able to decode it. And they were just an advanced civilization. So some points is giants, orphan trains, and mud flood. Basically, they knew how to thrive, and we don't. So here's a map from 1652, which appears, and Tartary and North America were unified under the same empire. If you notice. So wow, that's a lot. In around 1812, Grand Tartary is replaced by Russian Empire, but there is still the independent and Chinese Tartary, sometimes East and West Tartary. And by 1860, Chinese Tartary is Chinese Empire, and the remaining Russian Tartary roughly the same area as independent Tartary on some maps, disappears around 1880. So this empire was on maps until not that long ago. And here is their flag. The official history is hiding a major world power which existed as late as the 19th century. Tartary was a country with its own flag, its own government, and its own place on the map. Its territory was huge, but somehow quietly incorporated into Russia and some other countries. This country you can find on the maps predating the second half of the 19th century. So it has an owl depicted on it, which, if you know me or follow me, you know that there's a white owl that goes where I go, which actually has a Genghis Khan. Like a white owl saved his life, and that's why his soldiers started putting owl feathers in his in their hair. The warriors and a griffin. They have a griffin on the flag. So this is a CIA document, and if you look at it, it says, "Or let us take the matter of history, which, along with religion, language, and literature, constitute the core of a people's cultural heritage. Here again, the communists have interfered in a shameless manner. For example, on 9th of August 1944, the Central Committee of the Communist Party, sitting in Moscow, issued a directive order ordering the party's Tartar Provincial Committee to proceed to a scientific revision of the history of Tartaria to liquidate serious shortcomings and mistakes of a nationalistic character committed by individual writers and historians in dealing with the Tartar history." In other words, Tartar history was to be rewritten. Let us be frank, was to be falsified in order to eliminate references to great Russian aggressions and to hide the facts of the real course of the Tartar Russian relations. And this was no isolated case. In every Muslim area within the USSR, historians, on orders of the Communist Party, have rewritten history to distort the facts so that the Russians appear always in a good light. Needless to say, histories which present the facts truthfully have been withdrawn and destroyed so that the present and future generations of Muslims are forever denied the chance of learning the true facts of their nation's past. Yeah, so in other words, Tartar history was to be written, let us be frank, was to be falsified. That's pretty major. Now, a good point is that the Great Wall of China faces the wrong direction. Like, it was not built by the Chinese to keep the barbarians out, but by the Tartarians to keep out the Chinese. And then it's just the wall is simply facing the wrong direction. And the wall is not seen on any maps predating the late 1600s. So most of its construction occurred in 1700s, and it was built to keep the Chinese out of Tartaria. The openings on the wall are on the north side towards the former Tartary, not on the south side, China facing side. It should be called the Great Wall of Tartaria. The Tartarians had free energy, churches, cathedrals, mosques, and other buildings of worship. They were originally etheric power stations, water stations, and sound resonating acoustical healing centers. The buildings that religionists use as places of worship in our present day originally functioned as hospitals during the reign of the Tartarian Empire. So you start to look around and you know that helps um, ask deeper questions of why are these buildings like, you know, beneath the surface of the earth, what's going on there? Of just looking at the windows, like, how is that? And that brings up the whole mud flood thing. And there's just evidence all over the world that there's a type of eruption of water that created floods and mud throughout. And also keep in mind that pyramids have access to water, um, and star forts have access to water. Buildings hundreds of years old, located all across the world, are known to be encased in a mud flow up to several stories high, and in some cases, even completely engulfing buildings entirely in nothing but mud. Now we're at the orphan trains. The orphan train movement was a supervised welfare program that transported children from crowded eastern cities of the United States to foster homes located largely in rural areas of the Midwest. And the orphan trains were operated between 1854 and 1929, relocating about 250,000 children. So, where did these children come from? How were so many displaced all at once? Are these survivors from Tartaria? It was the largest empire. What happened to them? So, yeah, 250,000 children, they were abandoned. Um, and it was estimated that 30,000 abandoned children were living on the streets in New York City. And it says Charles Loring Brace founded the Children's Aid Society in order to help these children. You know, some people theosophize and wonder, like, well, where did these kids come from? Like, were they an experiment that was brought up from the surface of the earth? Were they just relocated, which seems to be a lot of evidence where they would take kids and remove them from like their indigenous cultures and, you know, their grandparents and their children and like move them across continents. So there was a mass relocation of children in the United States, and it began the documented foster care in America. So it makes you kind of ask more questions of like, well, was World War II simply part of the plan to destroy or remove Tartaria from history? And a war against Tartaria and the destruction of old cities in Central and Eastern Europe and their architecture, like Berlin, Dresden, Warsaw, and other cities in Central and Eastern Europe, was a deliberate effort to wipe away the traces of this advanced civilization. And after researching Tartaria, you begin to pay attention to the pattern of the buildings that were conveniently bombed and desecrated, especially when you're like, wait, if these buildings could facilitate your cells to thrive harmoniously and for disease be unable to live in it because of the healing effect it has on you, you're like, wow, and then the whole pharmaceutical movement of, it seems to be that there's a faction of power that wants you not to live as long and doesn't want you to thrive. So this brings me to the free energy antennas, the atmospheric energies that you would see in these old photos, and now the giant doors. Why are those doors so big? And the giant books, and to the giants. There's a lot of information on giants that is, you don't hear about. It's hard to find a ton of information on, and it seems Catalina, there's evidence of giants on, and it seems to be hush hush, but giant bones is something that exists. So look for the canals. You start to see the pattern of having a port and a canal system throughout the world. This shows India, Germany, Florida, Venice, Italy. This advanced civilization implemented canal systems and knew how to terraform. And you see this in the quality of soil, the building of the structures, even gardens that were designed thematically. And I always speak about inner earth water, um, the use of inner earth water and using the waters to our advantage. Here is a map from 1833. It is the Pennsylvania Canal. The ancient aqueducts I don't know, they really excite me. Ancient aqueducts, and it shows like that there was an advanced civilization that knew the power of water and how to move it. And they say they're Roman, but I believe they are much older and that they're designed by an advanced civilization that knew how important pure water is to our bodies, not just any water, like, structured living water, like hexagonal shape, and that's charged a certain way and, is definitely not formulated with fluoride. And our bodies are mainly water and just how imperative that is to having thriving health. And just like why some cultures stored water in copper due to its antibacterial effect because they didn't have access to good water, which I feel like, over the years became harder and harder. Um, I believe once upon a time everywhere had access to the pure waters from deep in the earth. And so it became like a ploy to intercept the waters and to fill it with things that would cause us not to thrive. Oh, here's the meme I made years ago. Ancient aqueducts ignites and excites my soul. So I am passionate about ancient aqueducts because I believe that drinking charged water with particular frequencies instilled with specific minerals cause our bodies to thrive harmoniously, especially the hexagonal shape. I believe everywhere had access to the water, and when that became blocked and different water instilled with things that affect our health negatively. Star forts. Oh, star forts exist all around the world, and we are told that they're for military purposes. And I remote viewed a star fort, and what I found most fascinating was this hydraulic system beneath the beneath the star fort, like it lowers, and and there was also these beams that had this like kind of this particular metal like inside of it, but how it lowered so deeply, it really fascinated me. And you hear of Atlantis or stories, and you're like, what? Okay. And you're like, did Atlantis exist? When did it? And they seem to be extremely advanced. And then you look at these star forts all around the world, like, wow, like this, these could be remnants of Atlantis. I mean, they're everywhere. And it just, to me, is evidence of that, like evidence that it didn't just exist in one area, but all around the world. Here are more star forts. Look at these. And it reminds me of, the different shapes of water and how you structure them. So the somatic garden, somatics is the study of vibrational frequencies manifested as sound. So imagine plants and vegetable herbs, flowers, with enriched soil designed with distinct minerals and nutrients needed for plant and our bodies placed somatically. So sound, light, and high frequency water from inner earth all creates the most abundant, enriched environment. And it looks beautiful. And I bet they taste like amazing. Now we're at the Tartarian tablet, which is a little bit of a trigger for me because that's what I'm supposed to be talking about right now. But this was found, um, I believe, in 1961. Nikolai Vlasa discovered it, and the tablets are about 2.5 inches across. Two are rectangular and one is round. And the clay tablets were unbaked and were discovered along with 26 clay and stone figurines, a shell bracelet, and damaged human bones. Some believe that the tablets were actually found within a sacrificial burial pit, and somebody said that it was uh, found with a female shaman. So it was discovered 19 miles from Alba, Julia, which it's Tartary in Alba County, Romania is 19 miles south of it. But if you look at Alba, Julia in Romania, it's a star fort, which connects that as well. Nobody's been able to decode these, and that's what tonight's show was supposed to be about. Okay, so um, it seems to be that it predates Mesopotamia, like it predates Sumerian language, which is controversial to say the least. Yeah, they're saying it's 1,000 years older than Mesopotamia. So some scholars have suggested that the symbols may have been used as mark of ownership or as the focus of religious rituals. Others believe that the tablets were created as imitations of a more advanced ancient culture or that there's some kind of multiplication formula. And there are scientists who think that the Tartaria tablets are, in fact, the world's oldest writing system that we've encountered. So the meaning of the symbols is unknown, and their nature has been the subject of much debate. But their existence clearly suggests that the Danube civilization invented a writing system long before the Sumerians. So it's a controversial claim, but it's very likely. So it's a mystery that was supposed to be solved tonight. Yeah, there's the Star Fort in Alba Giulia, Romania. And so, yeah, it's just south of there, about 19 miles. Now, sound healing, sound alchemy, it's so important. Programming water is extremely important to thriving. Sound can catapult you to places literally. Sound can harmonize the cells in your body. And what is important is what notes and in which order. And the ancients knew this. Cathedrals used sound and light to heal. Maybe at a certain frequency, demonic attachments cannot take place, or fungal infections grow, or cells mutate, or parasites thrive. Now we're going to talk about Genghis Khan, blue eyes, red hair. Persian historian Rashid recorded in his chronicles that the legendary glittering ancestor of Genghis was tall, long bearded, red haired, and green eyed. He described the first meeting of Genghis and Kublai Khan when Genghis was shocked to find that Kublai had not inherited his red hair. I heard that he was a blonde with blue eyes that would dye, like use this some type of I forget what they said he used but to make the hair red, but that he was a blonde. Some have said Genghis Khan was neither a Tartar nor Mongol, that he was originally a Scythian who changed the name of Scythians in Scythia to Tartarians in Tartaria, and thus became the first Khan or emperor of Tartaria. Here is his lineage. Here is a map of Scythia. Marco Polo said, if you put together all the Christians in the world with their emperors and their kings, the whole of these Christians, and throw in the Saracen's boot, would not have such power or be able to do so much as this Kublai, who is lord of all the Tartars in the world. Marco Polo also said, I did not write half of what I saw, for I knew I would not be believed. What did you see, Marco Polo? I made this meme. It says, to arrive at the truth, go through the myths. A lot of the things that we're taught are mythical or fantasy. Actually, there's more truth in it, right? Like dragons. So, what did Marco Polo see? Discussing in his discussing his adventure years later in his book, The Travels of Marco Polo, Polo describes arriving in the province of Karahan, where serpents of such vast size were said to live. Relating the existence of these great serpents from what seems to be personal experience, Polo states that the creatures strike fear into those who see them, for they are not only hideous to behold, but also long and big. You may be assured that some of them are 10 paces in length, some are more, and some less. They have two forelegs near the head, but for foot, nothing but a claw, like the claw of a hawk or that of a lion. The head is very big, and the eyes are bigger than a great loaf of bread. The mouth is large enough to swallow a man whole and is garnished with great teeth. According to Polo's interaction with local merchants, the gall of these great serpents was extremely valuable as a precious medicine. As such, many huntsmen were known to seek out these fearsome beasts, hunting them at night when they emerged from underground layers. Yeah, that was huge for me to learn this because you hear stories about reptilians, you hear stories, and then you hear that, and you're like, wait a second, has this been going on for thousands of years? And did Marco Polo encounter dragons in China? Now we are going to should I get into this? Yes. Okay. The latitude and longitude of Seoul, Russia. There's the I love coordinates, as a remote viewer, I I see the value in them. So there are the coordinates, and there's an account of a sarcophagus discovered with the woman's body in the settlement into Seoul, Russia. It's not a myth for the most of the people who claim to have witnessed this incident. So the discovery of Princess Tsul in 1969 in the Kemerovo region, Russia, is quite controversial. Okay. According to the reports, a sarcophagus filled with mysterious pink liquid was removed by coal miners in the village of, okay, I'm probably not saying this right. um, Rezachik of the Tisulski district in the Kemerovo region. Inside the sarcophagus was an intact corpse of a beautiful woman of Slavic appearance in a transparent dress from a mysterious material. The marble coffin was buried untouched, 20-meter coal seam. Miners found this large marble sarcophagus with elaborately carved ornaments. The main witness of the case is a man named Oleg Kulishkin, who claimed to have had heard the story from a former colonel of the KGB who was involved in the operation. The incident occurred in September of 1969. It's also very interesting that the town lies exactly perpendicular to the Stonehenge meridian, and one of the lines of the EP system runs through it, a tangent to latitude 60. Here is a copy of the article. They found the body of a beautiful young woman about 30 years old, preserved perfectly in a pinkish blue crystalline liquid inside the coffin. A black rectangular metal object, 25 by 10 centimeters, was placed close to the head of the corpse. What was that, a cell phone? Oh, the whole village arrived to see the mysterious discovery. Soon afterwards, it was declared that the place was contagious and a quarantine was ordered. All the evidence was collected from the site and the coffin was taken away by helicopter. According to researchers in Novosibirsk, the age of burial is at least 80 million years. The fabric used to make the dress could not even be determined. They concluded that the technology used to manufacture the fabric was much more advanced than present day technology. The composition of the pink blue liquid was not determined. Only some of its constituent components have been identified, formed by the oldest varieties of garlic of all things. In 2007, Roman Yanchenko, a journalist from the Russian newspaper Sterepo, decided to verify the legends of the Tsul princess. According to his research, Tatiana Pavlovna Karnakova, a wife of miner Karna, Karnakov, died 5 years ago as a result of a prolonged serious illness. So besides others who worked in a quarry died in a serious series of strange circumstances. The quarry was closed in 73 and now it's covered by forests. The village of Risichek really does exist, and there was an active coal mine in the area, although very little is known about the nature of the strange findings. But residents of the village still confirm the story of the Tzolk'in princess. This is an article by Oleg Kulishkin, published in number 124 of the newspaper Arcane. The lid of the box was perfectly fitted for a stronger connection. The inner edges were bordered by a double edge, which fit tightly in into the 6-inch thickness of the walls. The opening was a shock to those present. The coffin turned out to be a coffin, filled to the brim with a pinkish blue crystalline liquid under a spring surface on which a tall 180 centimeter slender, unusually beautiful woman who appeared to be in her 30s with the delicate European features and large, wide open blue eyes rested. Thick, dark blonde curls with a reddish tint to her waist lightly covered the soft white hands that rested along her body with short, neatly trimmed nails. She was dressed in a sheer snow white lace dress just below her knees, with short sleeves embroidered with multicolored flowers. There were no underwear. It seemed that the woman was not dead, but asleep, with her eyes open. At the head of the bed, there is a rectangular black metal box, rounded at one end, something like a cell phone, about 25 by 10 centimeters. The coffin was open to public view from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The whole town came to see this miracle. Almost immediately, the regional center was informed of the finding. The bosses, the firemen, the military, the police arrived in great numbers. At 2 p.m., a brick colored helicopter flew overhead from the region and handed over a dozen respectable comrades in civilian clothes, who immediately declared that the place was contagious and ordered for those present to move away from the coffin. They later cordoned off the discovery site and rewrote everyone who touched the coffin and even those nearby, supposedly for an urgent medical examination. The companions dragged the coffin to a helicopter, put the load, but the load turned out to be too heavy, so they decided to facilitate the task by removing the liquid. So they pump out this liquid that was in this like advanced tech burial that this girl looked alive still. Like literally she looked alive and like she was like alive, not alive, but like her flesh looked normal, you know? And so they remove the liquid. So after pumping the liquid out of the coffin, the corpse begins to turn black right before everyone's eyes. Then the liquid was poured back in, and the darkness began to disappear rapidly. A minute later, the blush began to play again on the cheeks of the deceased, and the entire body of the deceased took on its former appearance of life. Now, I had read accounts where they're saying like 80 million years and then 800. That's a huge that's a huge discrepancy. There's going to be probably a lot of people that are like this isn't true. But the age of burial, according to the professor, is at least 800 million years. This refutes the Darwinian theory of the origin of man from the ape. The woman is buried in the Carboniferous period of the Paleozoic era, billions of years before the appearance of dinosaurs. The original coffin with the woman's body was in a wooden crypt in the middle of a deep forest. Over time, the crypt was completely buried in the ground, collapsed, and without access to oxygen for hundreds of millions of years, it became a monolithic coal seam. At first, an alien version was featured, but genetic analysis of the woman's body showed her 100% similarity to modern Russian man. Today, we are just we are one, but one by one, like our ancestors 800 million years ago. It was found that the level of civilization to which the woman belonged to exceeds everything known to date, including ours, since the nature of the fabric with which the princess dress is made defies scientific analysis. The technology for the production of such material has not yet been invented by mankind. So what is this? Buried? A traveling pod? A pod, dispersed to be opened another time, like, bearing like DNA? Like we're gonna need this DNA at a later time. Like, is it in stasis? Perhaps it was the surviving beings who left their planet after a disaster, or the crew of a spacecraft that crashed on Earth. There is reason to believe that the Tisul might be in a state of suspended animation, and the metal box in the sarcophagus was a kind of timer to wake up and means of providing a chance to surface. Perhaps the premature opening of the sarcophagus and the drainage of the liquid killed the time traveler. Was it Palladians seated here? Hyperboreans? Somebody's at my door. Hold on. Okay, it was my favorite food ever being delivered. Shout out to Seabirds. I love you. You're the best place ever. Okay. Um, everything I just said I wasn't even paying attention to. So basically I'm saying, yes, the perhaps yes, I'm theosophizing. What is this? This is an advance to learn about. Okay, so why would I bring this up? Where this was a advanced civilization. I mean, there's star forts, there's these cathedrals, there's free energy, um, and there's this body of a woman that looks alive and preserved, and there's fluid that's is inside of this, and then it sounds like there's some kind of technological, like, device or, like, a tablet with her or a phone, or, maybe another advanced way form of communication or travel, operate dimensional travel. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just um clearly we were really advanced, and I love that story. I love that information. So yes, they examined the fabric. Yeah, they couldn't determine that. Yeah, that pink blue liquid, and this is because there's people that deny that this ever happened. Here is a plaque, there's like a monument there, and that's the article. There has been more of these types of buried sarcophagus found. People have been involved in displacing these sarcophagus have been dying shortly after. In particular, the engineer who was in charge of bringing the sarcophagus to the surface, it was found in a coal mine 70 meters below, died approximately a month after that. And the truck driver who hauled the sarcophagus to the airport had an accident later, and the vehicle he was driving fell in the nearby river. As a consequence, he drowned. It could be because of chemical structure embedded in these, or the consequence of digging up the deceased, especially such divine deceased, or both. Female Siberian ice maiden was 35 years old, found in Republic of Altai, Russia. Some reports claim that her tomb was a closed gate to the underworld, and the opening of her tomb caused the 2003 earthquake and the record floods of 2003. Ice Maiden was found in 1993. Sassoon was found in 1969. I always say, with working on this tablet, I always say, like, "Oh, you guys think, like, the drug cartel is the underworld?" And I the to me, the relic world is the underworld. If there's, like, several layers down beneath that. We're talking about grave robbing. Like, there's things that are sacred that you are not supposed to touch by any means, and then especially sell. And then the consequences of that, and then the ones that make fake ones and then sell it, like, it's a whole that is just it makes the cartel look organized and ethical, I guess is what I'm saying. So why would why would the CIA want to cover up Tartaria? What's the big deal? And why would factions want you to do that? Like, they don't want us to have free energy and free healing technology, but I theosophize that the most sought after to cover up is the teleportation technology. And from my experience, I've come across, you'll probably hear me talk about it a lot, but it's profound. That's why I talk about it a lot. Is this ancient crystalline technology that accesses you and shows you everything about you, who you are, who your ancestors are. Like it shows you what they experienced. It shows you like all these things about you, and it shows you future probabilities, like possibilities. You can see it. So the dimension, and I there was more than one location that's able to do that, and it is deep in the earth, and it exists. So the dimensional travel, the teleportation, the advanced flying machines, the ancient tablet machines that read these ancient tablets and shows and teaches you the true history and knowledge of these realms. To me, that's heavily guarded. There's a reason why these ancient tablets are like probably some of the most guarded things here. Okay, so to the World's Fair, San Francisco, 1915, the Tartarian San Francisco port city had a World's Fair in 1950 with, I said that so like, oh, the Tartarian San Francisco port city, like it was the thing. But grandiose building architecture. And if you look at the lights, allegedly powered by free energy, the use of metal rods on top of these grand buildings. It's just beautiful to think about, right? Like, how are they powering that? What's going on? This is the London's World Fair Exposition of 1851 in a place called the Crystal Palace. So a lot of these buildings around the world that have um, like underground access and free energy are now actually government buildings such as post offices and sites of banks. And you start to notice that too. This is in 1909. It's electrical cars plugged in. I feel like a lot of people think like we just started doing this in the last decade. And did you know you could fax someone in the 1800s? Ancient fax machine used radio transmitters, so you could send a signal and draw a picture. The pantelegraph copied an even older machine, and this is some information about it. These are zeppelins. Are they gassing up? 1898. This is the Giza pyramid with the zeppelin. Now, spirit photography. A lot of people say that this is not real, that this does not exist. These are all fake, and you could prove it. What I'm using it for is to think about, was this some type of like way to communicate with another, like somebody in a different dimension? Maybe. Was it an ancient way? Was this like based off of something like some things? Were they able to like FaceTime each other this way? You know, maybe. Here's a cell phone in 1922. Oh, it's a vertical parking garage in the 1920s. The monowheel, the Dynasphere, 1932. It only went 25 miles an hour. This is the Brighton and Rottingdean Seashore Electric Railway. It was an amphibious railroad in Brighton, England, that ran along the shallow waters of the English Channel between 1896 and 1901. The electric powered car, built on four legs of stilts, was originally called the Pioneer, but nicknamed Daddy Long Legs, which is perfect. Gilded mansion fireplaces. This really rocked my world, you know, of like, when something like resonates with you, or you just like it hits you to like help wake you up to certain things. I don't know. I feel like the fireplaces were kind of like that for me. But what are they really? Were fireplaces originally atmospheric energy gathering tech that wired the home with free etheric energy? Radium, it's been theorized that red mercury and radium had been used to generate power distributed on some sort of wireless grid. I really want to go to a radium springs. Electric power is everywhere. Tesla said electric power is everywhere, present in unlimited quantities, and can drive the world's machinery without the need of coal, oil, gas, or any other of the common fuels. So, what do I keep saying? We were advanced not that long ago. The ones with the wisdom go under the earth. Every cataclysmic event, the ones that have the knowledge know when to go beneath the earth. And it seems as though, especially, I mean, this video is not for like people that have been diving down Tartaria for a while. It was mainly for me like an intro of like family, for family members and for people that go to a lot of these conferences that had no idea about any of this stuff. And I wanted to kind of do an overview without taking it too far. And of course, I took it too far. But you start to notice too with seeing these people, like evidence of like that there's people that came up from this, like knew when to go beneath the earth and then came up and like overtook family names and businesses and everything. So factions of some go beneath and return to the surface like pirates who conquer and rule. And whoever had access and knowledge of how to work the pyramids and star forts could ignite a lot of water to come up from the pyramids and star forts. So, I mean, it's a possible, like, if you have that knowledge and you overtook, like, were some of these floods man made? And if so, how did you get the access to do that? And maybe that's, it's a possibility. Okay, so this will cause you to see the world differently. Like it starts out as like, hey, look, an empire, free energy, advanced technology. Wow, is that a giant? Giants are real to like coming to the thriving health through sound and programming high frequencies to water. And then it comes back to your soul lineage, like who what your family did. You're connected through DNA. We are forever connected to our ancestors. You better believe that. This information creates a clearer pathway with our ancestors by learning about them, what they experienced. Like it's a direct link to them. That's why this information is so significant. And we've forgotten our true history, where we came from. We've forgotten our language. Like like I could show you this tablet. You're not going to know. I could show you hieroglyphs. You don't know like the sounds to sing and in what order that heals. And that orphan train picture should strike a chord because we are all orphans. All of us have amnesia. We have forgotten who we are, where we came from, and we need to figure out, where we want to go. So it's important to remember where we've been, who we are, and what our ancestors experienced. That's extremely important. So this is deeper than, hey, we shouldn't be paying for electricity and there's a way to be thriving with our health and living much longer. Or hey, they're poisoning us. Why are they poisoning us? Like why is that happening? These buildings and our bodies are already built to be thriving. And each of us has the keys to help put that puzzle piece together. So that's why I like, became so like, people need to know this, of like that puts it in a nutshell right there with that slide. It's probably my favorite one. And looking at these things and there's people we it just it does something just by even viewing it. So there's so much below us and we are only seeing a tiny tip. And I have seen personally so much beneath the surface while remote viewing. And there are so many worlds down there, and we keep being taught in like to look up in space, and when it's like beneath your feet, behind your eye, there's so many answers. But there's much to see but what was always in front of us and within us. I don't know about sometimes I don't get into this. I don't think I should get into this. I take it too far. I end up taking it way too far. I'm talking about cosmic bacteria. Yeah, well, that's a whole nother day. But back to back to me. What am I saying? So yeah, that the Tartarian info is super important. And I wasn't trying to go super detailed because, like I said, this information is imperative because it ties a lot of things that were separated. Like it ties them together and it gets you looking in the right spots. And I think the ones that, you know, there's people that can be developing the free energy, like figuring this part of the piece out and that part of the piece out. And, but anyways, I'm going to go on a tangent, but that was my presentation. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you, yeah, I hope you learned something.
Watch the sun come up, beautiful, till it all burns out. We're like falling stars, miracles, dancing on the ground. And we're right with you to feel it strike deep dive. We're right with you, yeah. And we're right with you to feel it strike deep dive. Suffering grows, yeah. Listen, that life is beautiful.